Hey Till, grüß dich.
Hi Florian, grüß dich.
Hey Diana.
Hi, Florian.
Welcome, good evening. Florian, I'm also glad you joined. I'm sure you're gonna love this session.
Oh, I'm hyped.
Yes, so I,
The topics seem appealing.
yes. So, I posted it in the chat already. I think these principles implemented, they can seriously increase lifespan and especially increase the lifespan when we are very fit. It can increase productivity. And so I'm really looking forward to share those practices with you, and you may also have input about additional practices that you have.
Even more so, hearing that from you is really cool because if I like whenever I also describe you to friends, this like super high energy person is something very outstanding. It's one of the main characteristics I find about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, this is actually how I feel. So, yeah, let me share some best practices with you today. So, again, welcome to the session and let's go into it. So, where are we in the success habits framework? We started by setting goals. Then you started the accountability dashboard and you created your outcome-based organization system. And then you started with the 5-step process, including mindset mastery, getting clear on your purpose and mission, then prioritizing the right actions. I would say updating, creating new habits. Today is all going to be about productivity, focus, vitality, health, and energy. We are in week number 8. So let's go into it. So you're going to learn about 4 things today. Number 1, about energy, health, and vitality. Number 2, about focus and deep work practices. Number 3, about multiplying outcomes. And at the very end, briefly about how to wrap up the outcome-based organization system. Okay, and this guest is a bit surprising, but let's just continue. I think the guest left again. All right, so we start with energy and vitality. So a statement I want to start this with, and this doesn't get out of my mind and it's so important. A healthy person has 1,000 wishes, but a sick one has only one. So this highlights how important it is to be healthy. And you may have been in a situation like this in life yourself. And I've been in some situations in my life myself where there was only this one wish. So yeah, doing anything that we can to really stay healthy and to stay vital. Hi, Agustina.
Hello.
Thank you for joining.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. Just to wrap up, we're going to learn about 4 things today. This is number 1, energy, vitality, and health. Number 2, focus and productivity. Number 3, how to multiply outcomes, 10x. And number 4, we're going to briefly repeat and wrap up the outcome-based system. And I'm just going to post again the link here in the chat. This you're going to use today to self-evaluate yourself. All right, so yeah, it's important to be healthy. I think we all agree on that. It's important to be high energy because this is the fuel that makes everything possible, which gets us out of bed, which makes us do the work. So without energy, even the best systems that we come up with fail. So we want to enhance our energy. We want to be the CEO of our own health. So many people manage different areas. They manage things at their work, they manage things in their community, in their family. And then very last, they look at themselves. They focus, they manage their health. But isn't it maybe the most important thing because it is the enabler for anything else? So to start with, now I spoke a little bit about the body, but how many of you would agree that we are more than just a body, right? So we are a multidimensional system. Thank you. So as part of your routines, it's also important to take care of those 4 different dimensions. And this starts with our body. But what else is there? There's our mind. I would ask you, but I think you already know. So I'm just going through it. It's all your body, it's your mind, it's your heart, and it's your spirit. So in our routines, we want to take care of all those four. And what are some ways to take care of our body? So this is, for example, exercise, nutrition, sleep, recovery. Then what about the mind? How can we take care of the mind? This is about learning, writing, planning activities. What about the heart? So this is about relationships. This is about connection, empathy to other people. And then the spirit. So purpose, meaning, contribution, connecting with the nature, meditating. So with this, we have, I would say, different interactive parts today because we have a lot of ground to cover, but we do have a self-reflection. So I want to invite you to copy the sheet that you have here. And just like the last times, you go on the tab and you can copy it to your own major sheet. So you can copy this over to your own major sheet and then work in your own version. And once you have that, you can just write down your own score. So how much do you take care of your body? How much do you take care of your mind, of your heart, and of your spirit on a score from 0 to 10? So 10 is the best score. And reflecting about this, there's maybe one or two actions per category that you want to commit to as you are reflecting about this. So you can think of it like this. What's one more thing you could do for your body? What's one more thing you could do for your mind, for your heart, and for your spirit? So please go ahead, do that now. I think you have 1 minute for this. If you have questions, please ask. All right, have you all written down something? Yeah. All right, so let's move on. We still got a lot of ground to cover. Now, the beautiful thing is, as you are taking care of these categories, you are taking care of something more, because behind each of those is an intelligence. And the first time I heard it, I had to read it twice, but then it made a lot of sense. So this I have from Stephen Covey, because there are intelligences behind this. And this is our physical intelligence, this is our mental intelligence, our emotional intelligence, and our spiritual intelligence. And this makes just so much sense. And there is also another relation you can put here. So focusing on your body, practicing exercise, nutrition, sleep, gives you discipline, gives you self-control. Practicing with your mind gives you more vision, gives you more focus. Practicing for your heart, for relationships, gives you more passion, dedication. You are doing it for somebody as well, for example. And spending time developing your spirit gives you more consciousness, more integrity. And we can also relate that to human needs. So focusing on this physical category, it's the need to survive. Focusing on this mental mind category, the need for learning, for own growth. And then the need, focusing on the heart, it's this need for connection. And focusing on the spirit, it's this need to give back, to contribute. And I think these are beautiful analogies. And this gives us, well, let's say we do exercise, we eat healthy food, we spend a few minutes to meditate, we spend some quality time in a relationship. It makes it even so much more meaningful knowing that we strengthen this, this type of intelligence, this skill, and also this human need that we have. All right, so moving on. And again, to highlight what Stephen Covey says, the single most powerful investment we can ever make in life is investment in ourselves, in the only instrument we have with which to deal with life and to contribute. So we have this one health. So let's really be conscious about it. Let's really do the best to protect our health. So how many of you are excited now to actually learn about some techniques? Yes, thank you. And we have very good ones for you, I can promise you that. So there are 8 things you need. Well, let's start with this actually. This is very simple. What your cells need to thrive. So the cells in your body, what they need, these are 3 things. they need oxygen. So it's very important to breathe several times per day. Just focus on breathing. In the morning, do some conscious breathing pattern, some breathing exercise. This will give your cells the oxygen that they need. But we also need water. And I think it's one of the most common statistics that most adults, they don't drink enough water. Most adults, they wake up and maybe for the first hours, they don't drink water. Maybe they only drink coffee. So people are lacking water. And then it's this waste elimination. And we have the so-called lymph system, which is also in charge of eliminating waste in our system. And to keep this in movement, there are actually some breathing techniques that you can do. So these are things that your cells need because they also need to be cleaned. And this is what the lymph system is for. Now, the primary cause of diseases is accumulation of toxins in the bloodstream. And oxygen, water, and the lymph system, they really keep a constant flow through the body. And it's so logical. If there is no liquid in your body, then the blood cannot really flow. If there is no water in your cells, if there is no oxygen, and if the lymph system is not activated, then the waste elimination is reduced. So all those three factors are important. And in the steps that I will show you in a moment, actually, we have practices for all of this included. So, and again, before we start, now another foundation. So stop the poisoning. So break patterns that don't support your vitality. And I will show you 4 patterns that are actually poisoning. Cleanse and detoxify. So open the channels of elimination. These flows through your body. And then revitalize and regenerate. The beautiful thing is our body has a lot of capability to renew itself. So it might be like me personally, I've eaten a lot of fast food when I was younger. And now I'm doing the opposite. I eat healthy food. And the body has this capability to renew itself, which is beautiful. So there are 8 things you should do more of. And I give you first the keywords and then we go into each of those separately. And you can also, again, evaluate yourself. And what I want to ask you now, in a moment when you see those slides, please evaluate yourself on the fly. And then later on, you can come up with an action, or actually already when you read it, you can come up with your action that makes sense to you. And now just give me a second. I connect my charger. Okay. So the first thing to do more of is vital breathing and lymphesizing, so activating your lymph system. The second one is living water. This means not coffee, not soft drinks, living water and living foods. Then healthy fats and healthy oils. Then alkalinity, so go green, eat a lot of greens. Then movement and aerobic energy. Then maximum nourishment. So getting actually nutrients into your body. Structural alignment, which includes also muscle exercise. And directed mind and heart. Again, we're going to go into the details there in a moment. Then things to eliminate. First one is processed fats. The second one is animal flesh. And this is consciously called flesh because we don't need to necessarily exclude all kinds of meat, but flesh means really this industrially produced kind of meat. Then dairy products, eliminate, at least reduce, and exit addictions such as sugar, caffeine, also eliminate or reduce that. So let's look into it, things to do more of. And the first one is vital breathing and lymphesizing. So the first important thing is this diaphragmatic breathing. And this means that when you breathe in, your belly actually goes out. So many times people learn that when they breathe in, they should raise their shoulders. But the correct way of breathing is actually to pull out your belly. And you can practice that yourself by putting your hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, make sure that your belly goes out. Because in this way, your lungs can really fill with all the air that is needed. And it's a 2-digit percentage that with every breath you get more oxygen into your body. So this is super important. The second aspect here is your lymph system has no pump, and breathing is the pump. So sometimes it makes sense to do some kind of very active breathing. And when you do the priming from Tony Robbins, for example, in the morning, you're doing, and this is really activating your lymph system. And there are other kinds of breathing as well. I'm doing another morning routine from Tony Robbins where I do so very active way of breathing. And you can also Google for it, watch YouTube videos, and breathing for the lymph system. So the majority of toxins are eliminated through that. It's close to 70%. Then looking at the next one, this is living water and living foods. So clean and structured water. Clean water is so important. Then living foods, unprocessed foods. And the majority of foods from water-rich fruits where the life force is still intact. So in opposite, when something is really processed, there is not so much water in it, which is one of the disadvantages. And you can now evaluate yourself also on that sheet. Let's do it very quickly on a scale from 0 to 10. How well are you doing in terms of breathing? How well are you doing in terms of drinking water? And also write down one action, one commitment next to it. All right, and I think this is a quick one. So I give you a moment, but we will soon continue. So let's look at the next one, which is healthy fats and healthy oils. So these are omega-3 rich fats. These are unprocessed and cold pressed oils, such as olive oil. And the way you can look at this is like fuel and not as the enemy. So a common sense oftentimes in society is that fat is generally bad, but it's actually very healthy as long as you consume the right oil. And I really want to encourage you to be conscious there. In so many processed foods, there is, for example, trans fat, palm oil, heated oils, and this is really poison for the body. So make sure you consume healthy fats. And omega-3 even has an effect on our mind and our ability to focus. So the next one is alkalinity, so going green. And what I learned on one event that I attended is that really to exaggerate with the salad, really to eat a lot of greens. Because why not? There is so much water in it. There are so many healthy ingredients. If you put herbs into it, put a lot of herbs, put a lot of salad. Yeah, so it's actually quite simple. So the next time you go into the supermarket, and actually you can imagine that right now. And maybe you can close your eyes for a moment. So in the supermarket, imagine there is this salad in front of you and all those different delicious greens and vegetables. And feel the energy because that food is still alive. There is so much water, so much nourishment in it. And just imagine buying a little bit more of those greens and those vegetables as you would have bought before. Now imagine when you are sitting at home and eating those delicious vegetables and how your body is grateful for that. And you do this small commitment to eat even more greens, and I'm committing to it myself as well. So starting with greens, eating a bit more of it. Such a simple way, and it's also, in my opinion, a very delicious way. So you can also evaluate yourself, how you are doing right now and where you want to get here. And Florian, mouth watering from the greens. Beautiful. All right, so moving on to the next one. And this is movement and aerobic energy. So there are so many daily movements that you can do. And there is the saying, sitting is the new smoking. So take a lot of steps. Try to stand up from time to time. Like I have a standing desk where I'm standing right now. Walk the stairs when possible. I know somebody who said, this year I only do elevators, which works most of the time well, but then if you are in a skyscraper, it's more challenging. But the person did it. And then at least 2 times per week, 30 to 40 minutes endurance training. So really training where you are above a certain pulse for 30 to 40 minutes because your body needs that. So this is about movement and aerobic energy. Of course, any kind of movement, stretching before you go to bed is helpful here. The next one is structural alignment and maximum strength. So we do need to do muscle exercise. Just to keep especially as we are aging, we need those muscles to keep our body in shape, to protect our spine. We need this certain level of muscles. So if it's not in your exercise, I think all of you are doing a lot of exercise, but anyway, be conscious about it, this conscious muscle training regularly. So also evaluate yourself where you are right now and where you want to be if there is anything you want to commit to here. And then moving on to the next one, which is maximum nourishment. And when I think about this, I oftentimes feel so sorry for the human body of fellow humans that I see when all they eat are French fries and a hamburger. Because there are basically no nutrients in such food. There is nothing that the body really needs, and the body so desperately sometimes needs those beautiful nutrients. And you can see here some exemplary foods for that, and I'm sure you all know some lentils, some nuts, some vegetables. There are so many healthy and delicious things that you can eat rather than only white bread, for example, or processed food. And we go into a few other things that you should reduce eating in a moment, but really make sure that you not only eat, but you really nourish your body. This is the main purpose of eating, actually. And then directed mind and heart. So consciously directing our thoughts and emotions, doing gratitude as a daily practice, meditation, mindfulness. And this is really about reducing stress, because stress is also one of the main killers at the end of the day. And it is possible to live a very active, a very ambitious and fun lifestyle, but without the stress. And there are some tweaks. I would say living a life that is aligned to one's mission, what one really wants, being satisfied, and then also taking these conscious moments of meditation, because this is giving back to our body, this is giving back to our heart, to our spirit. All right, so these were the 8 practices, and you can also evaluate yourself here about your nourishment, about your, how often, how regularly you direct your mind and your heart. And then let's move on and look at the poisoning. And the metaphor I want to give you here, you could fill in a lot of healthy things. But if you continue to have very, very unhealthy life standards, it's like a bucket with a hole where the water comes out. So you are never really able to fill it in terms of health because something keeps on going out. So let's see how we can actually fill this hole. And the first one is, and I have to change the headline here. The first one is to avoid unhealthy fats. So these are any kinds of trans fat, hydrogenated oils, fried foods, margarine, French fries, refined vegetable oils are also not ideal. Like sunflower oil is not ideal. And any fat heated above the smoke point. And the demonstration, or what you see here, is margarine. So these are these refined vegetable oils. And when you think about it, this is supposed to flow through your body. This is supposed to flow through your veins. And it's so sticky. Now compare it to that beautiful olive oil. So when you have a chance, really try to avoid this kind of fat and go for the healthy alternative. You can also evaluate yourself. How many of these types of oils do you consume? So looking at the next one, it's this, what is called animal flesh. So any kind of really unhealthy meat. And the recommendation here, that is, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm just repeating what I have from some sources that I trust, is reducing the meat consumption, that I'm sure and confident about, reducing it. Whether you want to completely leave it out, I think this is an individual decision. I'm not a full expert in this, but what I confidently say, really reducing the meat consumption, quality over quantity. So if you eat meat, grass-fed, organic only, choose the wild salmon that is actually from the ocean over the artificial salmon, so to say. It's a big difference in terms of nutrients, antibiotics that they give to them, and be really conscious about animal product consumption. Also, you can evaluate yourself if there's any change you want to make where you stand right now. You can evaluate yourself. So the next one is dairy products. And when I heard that analogy for the first time, it's a little bit shocking, but it kind of makes sense. So the milk is actually made for a calf, which is a pretty heavy kind of animal, including the growth hormones that are in that kind of milk. So especially pure or fresh milk, it contains those hormones, it contains those nutrients that make a calf grow. And then humans are the only species on Earth that drink that milk from another species. So this is a very critical way to look at the dairy consumption that is really widespread in our society. And of course, it's also in other kinds of foods such as cheese, yogurt, milk-based ice cream. So my personal take on this is really completely I eliminated any kind of milk, and I sometimes consume cheese. What I did for some time, I didn't consume cheese for several days. And what I realized, my body was not starving for it. The first day, the second day, I'm in the mood, but then the body is not starving for it anymore, which I also interpreted as a signal. The body really doesn't need that milk or that cheese. It's a beautiful pleasure, and let's at least be conscious about it. And there are so many really great alternatives in our days, including, for example, coconut yogurt, which has only a few ingredients and which I would consider as very healthy. The next one is exit addictions. And this is, well, any kind of sugar, any kind of really processed flour where there are no nutrients in it anymore. There is only the energy if you have white flour. Artificial sweeteners. So any of these powders, if you see it here, and if you compare it to the living food that you saw at the beginning, there is a big difference. So also avoiding these so-called exit addictions. And you can think about it for a few days. What if you would leave out food from your plate? Or what if you would have some alternative? What if you would leave out bread from your diet? Or what if you had some alternatives to the white bread, such as protein bread, gluten-free bread? There are some alternatives that you can consider there, or full grain bread. There are really great full grain breads or breads that consist of seeds. And now also you can evaluate yourself here in those categories, where you consider yourself, where you are there. So this was a lot of theory. So I want to thank you for listening so consciously, and I hope there was something in this information for you. We still have ground to cover today, but nevertheless, I would give the word to each of you just to do some self-reflection. Please keep it brief, maybe a minute each. But what is your reflection on some key areas that you want to change, you want to improve on, or where you think you are doing quite well? So please keep it to 1 minute. Whoever wants to go first. Right. Florian, you unmuted yourself first.
Yeah, I'll just kick it off real quick. To me, one quick win that I would see is the greens, because I haven't so much thought about greens as one category, one pillar of health and nutrition so far. It was more this like generalistic vegetables and fruit kind of bucket, but greens really probably do give nutrition in a very special way. And I do find it quite easy to work with spinach, for example. That's something I do relatively regularly and kind of ramp that up also. Plus breathing. Breathing is one that I do want to take up again, because in the past, I made really good experiences with the Wim Hof breathing. If any one of you is familiar, was very, very energizing experience for me.
Thank you. How many of you think that this could also be something for you? Focus a bit more on breathing, on eating greens. For me, for sure. So Diana, you can go next.
So I have realized that I take pretty good care of my mind and my spirit, also my heart. But initially I thought that my body was taken care of as well, but I've realized that I could do much better here. First of all, go to bed earlier, to have enough sleep. As I told you, I want to start getting up earlier. So respectively, I should also go to bed early. And eating more nutritious food. I didn't have a problem with sweets, like almost ever, but recently it came to me. I don't know why. So I'm trying to reverse this bad habit that I have. So definitely, that's a working point for me.
So thank you for those reflections. And yeah, the sweets also resonate with me. So I got rid of this a few weeks ago with the Success Habits program, actually. Agustina.
Well, I believe I do most of them. I try to eat clean because I have many intolerances, so I have to do this. If not, I feel awful. But something that I used to practice more before, and now it's being sometimes hard for me to do this, is breathing and meditate or write down something about my day. So last year I did this every day. This year is like sometimes I do this and sometimes I can't. So this is something I want to improve or I want to do more often.
Thank you. So it's something for your mind and especially for your spirit is maybe journaling. Yes, doing that consciously. So great reflections. And it's so powerful that you decide to be the CEO of your life and do those reflections. So give yourselves thanks for doing that. And let's move on. Let's continue. So the next one here is energy anchors. And from joining the last sessions, you may have an idea what those energy anchors refer to. There is, for example, Tony Robbins. Before he goes on the stage, he jumps on a trampoline. Every time he jumps on the trampoline, he gets into a peak state of a next level. So this is one example of an energy anchor, something when energy is low to get into which directly increases energy. So they bring instant state changes. And examples are holding a power pose for some time. It doesn't have to be 2 minutes. but power poses are very, very powerful, and it's even proven that it increases the testosterone in the body by up to 20%. Another one is just doing 10 jumping jacks or doing some squats whenever you feel sleepy. Another one is singing before an important call. So let's say you have to make this phone call and you're a little bit excited about it. So singing is this multidimensional activity which immediately lifts up the mood. And you can think of many, many other anchors for yourself, but the important thing is you need them ready before you use them. So practice them regularly. And I'm sure you already have those anchors, just be conscious about them and make sure you actually apply them when in need. So instead of staying in this fight or flight mode, there is this mini step you have to take to say, all right, I'm going to activate my anchor. I'm going to activate my anchor now, and then you can break through. So let's be conscious about energy anchors. Then coming to the next one. So this is to wrap this up. This is this idea of production versus maintenance. So how long am I actually in production and how long am I in maintenance or renewal? And there is this beautiful saying, if I invest 1 hour in a morning routine in the morning, I create 3 hours in the day where I have more time to get things done. I increase my output. So when I spend time on maintenance, on renewal, the production gets so much better. And sleep is, of course, also included in that. I didn't include it here, but we spoke about this in the morning routine. And it's not just about the length of the sleep, it's also about the sleep quality. All right, moving on now to part number 2. Actually, it's still part number 1, intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, this is a quick one. And I've been practicing that now for, I think, 3 or 4 years already. So it's not only about what you eat, it's also when you eat. And there is this cycling between eating and fasting periods, like you see here on the picture, 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating. So that's the most popular one, actually. And it's not just a trend from today, it's actually a very ancient practice. And when you think of people thousands of years ago, they didn't have access to food all the time. Like in our days, people oftentimes get up in the morning and they say, oh, I cannot do without breakfast now. And they eat something after 15 minutes already. They drink a coffee after 15 minutes, not giving the body the chance, not giving the own metabolism the chance to adapt to the daytime. Our body has mechanisms for that. We don't need caffeine first thing in the morning, and we don't need food first thing in the morning. So oftentimes in our days, people eat, say, 15 hours per day, first thing in the morning and right away before going to bed. And this is actually very unhealthy. If we think back of this metaphor of the machine, then this body machine that is doing digestion, it's working all the time. So what happens to a machine that is working all the time? Well, it's aging. The machine is aging. And when you fast, you're actually doing the opposite, because one of the beautiful side effects is that it's also very detoxicating, because while you are fasting, it really eliminates some of the toxins in your body. And the most common method, as I mentioned, is 16 to 8 intermittent fasting. And there are other methods as well. Normal eating for 5 days, then restricting it for 2 days. The warrior diet, only eating for 4 hours per day. So all of these are possible. I encourage you to do at least some kind of intermittent fasting, whether it's the full 8-hour window or whether it's an extended window. So your body is then switching from the energy from the food to stored energy. So it's switching between state, and your metabolism stays flexible. And now there is one additional benefit in it, and this is one of my favorite benefits. So people ask me, don't you have a jet lag when I travel? And I say, I don't have a jet lag. Well, I really don't feel the jet lag. And one of the reasons is, I think aside from the mindset, one of the reasons is because I stick to my nutrition principles even when I travel. So what I experienced last week on a flight back from New York to Germany, I was starving in the plane. I was starving. I was really hungry. But they were serving food at the time where we were supposed to sleep, where they were about to turn off the light. So I had this one moment where I thought, okay, I'm just going to eat. But then I thought, okay, what's going to be the next day? I'm going to be super tired. I'm going to suffer for this for days. So I said no to the food because it was right before sleeping. Or when I fly to the West Coast in the US, I arrive there in the afternoon. This is already nighttime in Germany, and I'm going to sleep early. I would love to drink the coffee, but I don't drink the coffee because I consider the circumstances. So it's very, very good to handle with all kinds of life situations. And they did this research, even firemen who have really a challenge oftentimes because they have night shift, they have day shifts. So people who work in shifts, when they adjust their nutrition, it makes it much more standable. Yeah, so maybe a question to the round. Do you practice any kind of intermittent fasting, or would you like to practice it?
I have tried it a couple of years ago, and I was extending the window because I have like low blood pressure and other things, which made it quite challenging for me. So I would usually eat every 3 hours, at least something small. But I tried and I extended this to 24 hours. And in the 22nd hour, I almost fainted on one of the meetings. And that's when I decided, okay, I just don't want this. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience, to be honest. But many years later, meaning now, since about a year or so, I have noticed that I have naturally started eating my breakfast later, because I have my very strict morning routine now, and this helps me focus on other things than eating. So I usually it's not 16 to 8 on some days, yes, but most of the time it's 12, 12 or 14. But it's still better than before, for sure.
Okay, that's good. That's some kind of reduction of the eating window. And maybe just a very quick share also from Florian Agostina.
Okay, me maybe. I don't practice intermittent fasting, and I believe I won't do this because it's something with my past and some experiences that I know that this is not the best practice for me. But what I do is I try to have dinner early I mean at 9 p.m. for example, and then I have breakfast at 9 a.m. or 8:30 after gym. I go to the gym at 7 a.m. So yes, after gym, that's the most I can do.
Having spent some time in Argentina myself, I know how hard that must be for you because there really everything is shifted so so late.
Yes.
For me, like back in the day, Till, I remember when you did the long fast, that was actually quite inspirational for me because when I have phases where I really want to cut weight, I've noticed that for a couple of weeks or sometimes also more, um, a relatively intense intermittent fasting of like one meal a day that is really, really, really big. And then but more or less like 23 hours of not fasting that works. That doesn't really affect me too much after a few days. But what you did back in the day, I don't know what it was it a 3 or 5 day one even? That one I found very, very impressive, and I haven't gone so far, but would be an interesting challenge also just for my own knowing what I'm capable of. And I might need some tips from you at some point.
So I'm actually planning to start another fasting challenge only for those who want. So I did this for 5 days. I did all my exercise and so on. We had one participant who did it for 6 or 7 days, but that's a different story. All right. Yeah, so thank you for those sharings. And I think it's fair. I think everybody has their own experience and perspective here. And if we can at least reduce the eating window by a little bit, it's already a big progress. So then going to the next one. So the second part is deep work. And this is, let's start with the definition here. So deep work describes a state in which you are fully focused, super productive, and generate the highest yields and outcomes. This deep work state. It's when you are able to tackle the most difficult problems. It's when you know, when I get into this state, I get this done. It's when you know that. And since these problems, so these complicated problems, oftentimes bring the greatest benefits, so that makes the deep work really rewarding, because we can tackle the big challenges, or we can tackle the things that really bring us forward. And there are three key ideas here. The first one is deep work is about learning and mastering new skills. So when you do deep work, oftentimes you can do something which you haven't done before, so you will learn a new skill. The second one is you got to do it consciously, because distractions are everywhere. So it requires a lot of ownership, discipline, focus, proactivity. And the second idea here is that, yeah, you can really, as I already said, apply it to your most difficult challenges, to approach them in the state of deep work, basically to approach them in the morning, when it's oftentimes the easiest to do deep work. But we will go through some practices how you can basically do it anytime. So what I'm presenting here, and it's actually one of the first YouTube videos I did 1 year ago when I was speaking about this. So it's inspired by the research from Cal Newport. You may also know the book Deep Work, but it's also enriched with several other sources. So Cal Newport, he studied top performers. And it's more than just focus, it's pushing cognitive limits in a healthy way, obviously. And since it's so rare in our days, it is well compensated. So it's really a superpower, especially in the world of distractions. And the people, they know they can come to you to get these things done that require high focus. So you can probably reflect about yourself, and you can recognize yourself as somebody who is able to do this, which is really a differentiator in our time. So you develop excellence like this. And there is this great quote from Bill Gates: a great writer of software code is worth 10,000 times the price of an average software developer, because that person can create these unusual results, and creating these unusual results really requires focus. It requires a lot of other things, but it also requires focus. So there are 10 key principles here, and we go again through each of them. The first category is about managing time. So scheduling time for deep work, planning out your day, then managing your environment. So defining your deep work location, defining deep work only environments. This is this idea of defining a zone where you can be in the zone. Managing distractions, so you can actually anticipate some distractions that may come. Emails, social media, shallow work, so people approaching you to do some things that are really not important for you. And then mindset and train related. So practicing this ability, following some principles of execution, and ritualizing your workday shutdown. So let's go into those, and you can again evaluate yourself in each of those categories. So please, on the fly, use that sheet that I provided. So the first principle here is scheduling time for deep work. Of course, eliminate or delegate shallow work tasks. So try to reduce them as much as possible. And then for your deep work sessions, block time, ideally in the morning. And you can do it on a daily rhythm, but you can also block for yourself 2 or 3 days in the week where you focus on deep work. So sometimes for me, this is actually a Sunday. Last Sunday, I was in a co-working space, building something all the time, creating content and building something, really focusing. I eliminated all distractions. So you can define those days for yourself where you do something which you are passionate about, only focus on that. Protect this time from meetings, calls, or distractions. How many of you remember a moment when sometimes it's this one message that you read which may bring you a little bit out of the state? So try to avoid these risks. Yeah. Then plan out your day. So again, structure your day into focused blocks and breaks as far as possible. Prioritize high leverage, deep work first. So sometimes you can just ignore the shallow work and really focus on the important thing. Limit internet time, limit phone time, and set ambitious deadlines. So there is this controversy. So sometimes I hear people say, I put myself low goals, or I put myself unambitious deadlines to make sure that I can achieve it. But what happens then is that we strive for this mediocre goal, or we strive for this deadline, which is 2 months, even though we would be capable to do it in 1 week. And the beauty is when we set ourselves an ambitious deadline, we can actually come up with a new approach to do it in 1/10 of the time. And if we look at the AI tools, for example, that exist today, so when I have ambitious deadlines, and I have a lot of ambitious deadlines, I really got to think creatively, how can I get this solved? And this comes back to the questions you ask yourself. So there is this saying, the quality of your life depends on the quality of questions you ask yourself. So with an ambitious deadline, you can ask yourself, how could I get this done in this short amount of time? Today, there is even a companion, ChatGPT Model 03, which is very strategic. So we could even give the input, okay, how could I actually get this done in half the amount of time? So 1 second. All right. Going to the next one, it's about location. So optimize your deep work location. Define a zone where you can be in the zone. Keep it distraction free as much as possible, and use physical signals like doors closed, headphones on. So a best practice I oftentimes do in the office is I'm wearing my Apple earphones. I have this beautiful voice distraction mode, and people are just noticing that I'm focusing. And people respect that as well. So use these signals. And then create a deep work only environment. This is ideal. I don't have it in my home, but I still have these places where I go to do deep work. In my vision, I have a room that is only for working, that is only for deep work. I have my holiday house somewhere in the south, where I have space for everybody, for the family, but I also have my office that is reserved for deep work, maybe with a view on the ocean, which inspires me. Yeah, so removing any kind of distractions here and keeping your water ready. And remember also to evaluate yourself. So do you have those deep work locations? Do you use physical signs like earphones? Do you really create them distraction free? Do you have water around? Is your desk usually in order, or is there clutter on it? So also evaluate yourself in terms of location. Now, next, let's look at managing distractions. And the first distraction to manage is emails. So, and this is quite simple. The first rule here is check your email at fixed times only. So it could be once per hour. You could do it intuitively, but turn off the notifications. Don't look into it so often. Then adapt the highest email standards yourself. When you reply with clarity on the goal, on the next steps. Don't send vague responses. Do not tolerate vague responses. If you get a vague response, call the person out. Call the person out. You can do it in a kind way, but make sure that everybody respects their time. And email standards are very important for that. And automate as much as possible in your email inbox. The next one is rethinking social media use. So you could do it in different ways, setting time windows, for example, checking sometimes the app consumption on your iPhone. You could try a 30-day social media detox. And you can ask yourself, for each app that you have on your phone, does it really help you with your goals? Is this really in line with what you want? Otherwise, you can delete it. I want to give you my personal best practice. So there was a time when I checked this social media use every day. and I try to reduce it. Right now, and this has been going on for some time, I'm so much focusing on my goals, on what I want, that I kind of naturally don't look into social media. Yeah. And then I do it sometimes to communicate with friends, but then I really enjoy it and I really appreciate and cherish this moment. So being conscious about social media. And then also learning to say no to shallow work. So tasks that are really misaligned with your priorities, don't take them. I would say unless this is really important for the other person and it's not such a big burden for you. And you want to do that favor to the other person. Maybe it's an exception. So there are some perspectives to be super, super strict about it. In my personal opinion, it's still something beautiful and something nice to do a favor to another person, but make it exceptional, exceptional. And if it's a no, it doesn't have to be a no. You can just be very polite and say, I would love to help you, but I actually have this, and this really requires my focus because it has a very important purpose. And you can give them a suggestion how they could help themselves. All right. So these are best practices in terms of managing distractions. So now you can also evaluate yourself. How do you currently manage distractions? So how are you doing on a scale of 0 to 10 again? And if there's anything you want to commit to, please also write it down. Then let's look at the next category, which is about mindset and brain. So the first one is training your focus. And the beauty is, just as anything in life, if you practice it, you become better and better at it. So training your focus regularly, you will be able to resist that constant stimulation better and better. And let's imagine you are waiting for a friend. You're waiting in front of a coffee shop for a friend. What is the first thing that 90% of the people would do? Take out their phone, including myself. It happens to me most of the time. But what is an alternative I could do in this moment? I could leave my phone in the bag and I could just look around. I could look at the variety of the nature. I could look at people. I could smile at somebody. I could be curious about something, or I could reflect about something. Thinking about one of the things that I really want and use that moment to, just think about that. Isn't that beautiful? We have the capability to focus on something that we really want in any moment. So let's appreciate those moments and create more of those. So training the focus. The next one is measuring deep work success. And a very simple way to do that is just to journal. In the morning, writing down an intention, and in the evening, checking if it's achieved. And I say that oftentimes, the beauty of setting a vague intention in the morning is it's not just a check mark you set, but you could say, I want to create a strategy for this. I want to connect with 5 mentors who bring me further in this idea. This is very vague, but the beauty is that so different things can happen then. Or I want to really show up in a very kind and connecting way to anybody, to all the people today, and see the magic that can come out of this. So, and back to the key idea here is to measure the deep work success. So setting yourselves goals at the beginning, could be at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of your work session, and then track your metrics afterwards. Create an accountability system, use an accountability system. We have an accountability system here in this group. And also track and celebrate your progress regularly. Do those check-ins with yourself, with others. And I realize oftentimes in our society, it's personally, I sometimes felt like, or I feel like, can I really share my success in front of that person? And I don't do it in front of every person, but I do it more and more and more and more. Because I just want to allow myself to celebrate the success, to share the successes, especially with the people that are close to me. And I could even ask them, hey, is it okay? I'm very enthusiastic about it. Could I share this with you? But let's celebrate the success. And this re-emphasizes the reward system and re-emphasizes your willingness to do this deep work. So ultimately creating a workday shutdown ritual. This is similar to maybe to the evening routine, but this is, you can really ritualize this, like closing your computer at the end of the evening and then celebrating it for a moment. Do a few push-ups, smiling, say, yay, I did it. So celebrating this moment and then also doing the switch into a different zone. All right, so these are the principles related to your mind and your brain. Please also evaluate yourself in those categories. How are you doing there? And as I like to say, if you only implement a few of the learnings you just wrote down, and you can increase your ability to work deeply by 5%, by 10%, this already makes such a key difference. So I want to give again the voice to you about any reflections that you had, anything that you want to commit to. And this time we go in the reverse order. So Florian, you can go ahead and start.
I like the idea of having a dedicated space for deep work. It's very good that you spoke about this now as well, because I heard about it in a podcast, and a podcast, for me, sometimes it takes some exposures to an idea for it to like really grow to a point where I want to implement it. And like my flat, but also the office, there would be ways of how you, for your own brain, can make sure that you know when I'm sitting here, I'll be doing this kind of work, and when I'm sitting there, I'll be doing another kind of work. I've heard that before, but while you were speaking, I really felt more eagerness to try this concept out more thoroughly and use the space that I have, plus also various corners. It doesn't only have to be a different room, which of course for practical reasons sometimes isn't possible, but even just having a corner here or a place in another corner, that can already be helpful. It's a big one I'm currently thinking on now.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So Agustina, you want to go next?
Yes. Um, I think what I have to improve is to dedicate time for those specific works that I have to do to meet my goals every day. Because sometimes I I get distracted by social media. I'm trying to manage this. It's also inspiration for me because it's part of my work, of my job, but it's like a thin line, you know. And then to say no to some plans or projects or things that are not aligned with my goals. That's something that I'm working and thinking a lot these days.
Thank you for sharing those, Agustina. And over to you, Diana.
Uh, so as we were going through all those tips, I've noticed that some of them I used to use, but then I kind of stopped. I still have my focus time blocked in my calendar, or the morning work routine and the evening wind down window. It's in my calendar, but I don't respect it. I just lost it somewhere on the way. So it was a very good reminder because I remember when I was the most productive in my life, I was really using those. Not all of them because I didn't know many that you have mentioned, but already a couple of them were able to make a huge difference. So if we add from today on even one tip per week or per month, and I'm sure we can just observe such a huge change in the upcoming months. So that's my take on it.
So thank you for sharing those reflections. Yeah, really love it. And yeah, let's every day take another step to a more focused state to get more into this flow. And what I personally experience when I get into this flow in the morning, say from 6 or from 7 to 9, then the rest of the day I'm also super productive because I already achieved the highest victory for myself because I worked on this, what is so important for me. So yeah. Looking at the next part now, how can we multiply our outcomes? What we discussed so far was really much focusing on ourselves, and then we want to bring additional factors into this equation, which we are going to do right now. So how can we do that? So what are other ways to create 10x outcomes? Of course, as we said, we can manage our mindset, the energy, the focus, the productivity. But what else is there? So there are other people, right? And if we approach relationships at work, privately, with a true abundance mindset and with a win-win mindset and with trust, we can create very, very different results because others are going to collaborate with us. And it's not only about the direct impact that this creates, but it's sometimes people that give us these very deciding ideas that really push us forward. And to do that, we also need to influence other people, right? So we will at least briefly go across principles of influence today. And ultimately, it's about leadership fundamentals, which we will cover in the next chapter. So today, let's look at the win-win mindset and let's look a bit at the principles of influence. So, and this is very, very simple actually. So when I approach a situation with a win-win paradigm, I want to seek for mutual benefits in each interaction. At work, privately, I want to seek the mutual benefit. I want to think abundance. There is enough for everybody. So one of my favorite sources of inspiration, but I have many, it's Peter Diamandis. He speaks about abundance and how in the future the humans can have abundance. For most people, it already stops with the scarcity mindset on a day-to-day basis. They are competing for this one position. They are competing for this one piece of the cake, ignoring that there are so many positions, that there are so many cakes in this world, right? So adopting this abundance mindset, and this requires courage sometimes, and this requires being very considerate with another person. And this also requires a long-term focus and it enhances actually interdependence. So when it's about optimizing my own mindset, being proactive, I can be independent. But to maximize my impact, I got to be interdependent because other people can help me to get to the next level. And for that, you really may have to overcome traditional paradigms because at school, in sports, people typically learn there is just one person who can win. There is a number one, a number two, and number three. And personally, I'm a very competitive person. How many of you would consider yourself as a competitive person? Yes. And there is still space for abundance, right? We can achieve anything that we want. We can be those achievers, but we can still approach life. There are moments when you want to win, right? There is a moment when I run the marathon. I want to run as fast as possible. But then it's also about just making it. This is my personal victory. And approaching life situations with an abundance mindset. And in relationships now, there is also this idea of the emotional bank account. Has any one of you heard about the emotional bank account already? It's a beautiful, you have heard of it? Yes, it's a beautiful analogy because you can pay in something and you can withdraw something. So you can think in these terms with relationships. How many of you ever experienced a situation where you had to tell a bad message to a person, or you had to cancel in the last minute, and the person was very understanding? The person was more understanding than you could have hoped. Yes. And this is most likely because there were enough deposits in this emotional bank account. That person trusts you. You did a lot of pay into that relationship, right? So you can make deposits into this emotional bank account by understanding the other person, by keeping promises, by being kind. And potentially you can also do withdrawals, right? By disrespecting, by breaking promises. So be conscious about that. Try to have your highest standards, but of course also be kind to yourself. So things may happen. These withdrawals, they may happen. So to anticipate that, always try to pay in a little bit more. And what is needed for that is also an abundance mindset. Knowing that when you pay something in, you are not giving something away. It's like a conscious investment and believing in this abundance mindset. Apologizing sincerely after missteps. Sometimes, so I try to say not too often sorry in my own life, because in most situations, people use sorry in moments when it's really not necessary. But when it is necessary, then I'm happy to over apologize, to sincerely apologize, to show that I mean it. And what currency? So each person has their own currency. So maybe for the one person, it's giving them a hug. This is the biggest thing you can give them, giving them a hug. For the other person, it's taking them to sports, or giving them compliments. There are these different love languages. So knowing the currency of the other person, the emotional bank account. So keeping it in balance and maintaining a buffer, this is here the key to success. And to create win-win agreements, something which I also learned in my life, because oftentimes I didn't clarify things up front. So defining clear expectations up front, leaving flexibility when it's possible. I'm also a friend of leaving some flexibility because things may change, but setting expectations up front, clarifying roles and goals and desired outcomes, ensuring that both parties see a real value in the outcomes. So when you go into a business relationship, when you go into a life situation, maybe you were pretty good in the negotiation, but you kind of have a sense that this is not so good for the other person, then maybe rethink it, take a step back and change the approach. And you can also use empathy to align their wins with yours. Maybe you got to increase their perspectives. Maybe there is another way they could see the situation where it would also be a win for them. And also a key idea is when there are two scenarios, one is limiting for one person, one is limiting for another person, there is typically a third, a fourth, and a fifth alternative. And a great way to explore those, well, number one, connecting with the outcomes. Most people, they only focus on the options. They completely forget what is the outcome. So connecting with the outcome, you can even go there in your mind. You can create yourself like an anchor. You can say the outcome is over there. You go there, you close your eyes, and you think of different ways to get there. You could ask ChatGPT, I have this situation, I have these options. You can even speak it into it. Are there other ways? Or you can use the so-called perceptional positions, which we also use in coaching. So you, again, look at the situation from your own perspective, from the other person's perspective, and from a meta position. And you could even bring yourself into the mindset of a role model of you to see the situation from their perspective. Just brainstorming what are other ways to create a win-win agreement. And oftentimes, it's a lack of flexibility. And then people could even say, yes, but we already have those two options. That's it. But no, there's an abundance of options out there and we can find a win-win. So finally, and we are already getting at the end of the time, the 7 Principles of Influence by Robert Cialdini. How many of you, does anybody know those principles? Okay. It's also a classic. I think today somebody asked me about my favorite book, although this was not in our group. So this is one of my favorite books. There are 7 principles to influence other people. The first one is reciprocity. People return favors. Give first. So do people return favors every time? Maybe not. But do people return favors most of the time? Yes. Are people very happy? Do you create a good energy when you do a favor? Yes. So use this principle of reciprocity. You can also use it strategically. The second one is commitment and consistency. So when people say that they commit to something, a small yes, It's one of the biggest forces in human being to stay consistent to what we once have said. You can also use it to influence yourself. Making a commitment in front of others, it's one of the most powerful ways to stay committed to something. No matter if you want to create a business, no matter if you want to get up at a certain time in the morning, you know that person is going to ask me for it. You can even tell the person, hey, please ask me for this in 1 week. I want to stay committed to this. The next one is social proof. So people follow the crowd. If you have an argument and you can attach some kind of social proof to it. Yes, our EMEA leader was saying this. Oh yes, this is the best practice that Sam Altman shared. Anybody, any way you can add a social proof, or 90% of the population are doing this. Any kind of social proof. Or the doctor said this. Even though the doctor said this, I don't know if it's still always the best argument, since we have so many more sources right now. The next one here is liking. We say yes to those we like. And interestingly, people like people who are like themselves. And this is even why when you join a certain group, you can dress in a similar way to them, which may increase the likelihood. It comes to another principle, which comes later, this sense of we-ness, this sense of community. But liking is important. It's not just that you got to be like the other person. There are so many ways to be liked. If you sell to a customer, are you more successful in selling if they like you? Yes, maybe they care less about the product, but they buy from you because they like you. Authority, which I actually mentioned already in the social proof. So authority is important. And if you can position yourself as an authority, people want to buy from you. People want to hire you. So ask yourself, what are some ways I could enhance my authority here? The next one is scarcity. That's a very straightforward one. When something is limited, people want it. So how can you limiting your time, limiting your product? So limiting, you can influence. And ultimately, unity, the sense of we-ness. And you can even use it in a sales situation. You can use it in a social construct. People like us, we stick together, right? You create this unity with the other person and you connect with them more. And by connecting, you then make sure that you are aligned. So these are the 7 principles of influence. So how many of you find these powerful? At least one principle, if you apply that, that could have quite an impact. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So this was actually the last content for today. So we went through energy focus. We also went through the morning routine. We went through deep work. And we went through nutrition. And we went through this win-win mindset. And ultimately, if you want to spend another 5 or 10 minutes, we are going to do a small repetition of the outcome-based organization system. So let's do this. I think it's worth a small refresher. And I really broke it down to the most important principles. So please, maybe one time stand up. Let's do a little stretch, just to shake a little bit. So first of all, shaking, maybe stepping a bit. Yes. Raising the arms up in the sky, nice and high, and going to one side and to another side, and going to the front and going to the back. Beautiful. And I just decided I'm going to go for a walk after this, enjoying a little bit outside. So yeah, let's do the recap about the outcome-based planning. So first of all, why do we organize ourselves? Because we want to keep the mind nice and clear. So we want to have the mind like water, so beautifully clear. And we need some kind of external systems for that, because our mind is for creating ideas, for having ideas, not necessarily for holding them. And there is this beautiful analogy, like with a computer, when there is too much on the short-term memory, it may freeze. So let's put this into the long-term storage, and let's keep the working area free for creativity. We have the 7 power principles of outcome-based systems. And just keep them in mind when you write down your vision in life, your purpose, your actions. Use positive language that makes you emotional. Use beautiful language. Focus on the result. It makes so much easier. We can say the quality of our life depends on the decisions that we take. And how can we take decisions well? Well, focusing on the result is the best way to do that. And the power of purpose, so attaching purpose to any action. And we learned today another way to do that, right? So we learned that doing physical exercise, it's not only good for the body, but it's also creating discipline. It's creating this, it's creating another type of intelligence. So we are attaching more purpose to something. The power of mapping, and this comes to chunking something. So sometimes in life there could be so many loose ends, so many to-dos. But if we chunk it up to what we actually want to achieve, we say, okay, this is actually this category. Makes it much, much simpler. If we map something, we make it simpler to digest, and so much is controlled by our unconscious mind. If we map this, then our unconscious mind can execute. If there are just a lot of loose ends, we don't have so much ability to execute subconsciously as well. The power of leverage. So can I leverage a system, a person, a service in order to get something done? The power of chunking, which I kind of explained in the power of mapping. Mapping means actually mapping any action to a goal and to a purpose, which makes any action more meaningful. And the power of a life plan. So actually having a plan. And I had a beautiful conversation, actually many of those, where people tell me, I didn't have a plan, but now I have a plan. Now I have a clear goal, and it's beautiful. And once you have this focus, then the plan, it evolves. It may change over time. It may become more colorful, more beautiful. It can evolve. But creating this plan initially is so important. So again, results focus that I really want to highlight, focus on outcomes, not on activities. Focus on not on the to-do list, but what you actually want to achieve through it. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What is my outcome? What result am I committed to achieving? Ask yourself in the morning, what's my outcome for today? What do I really want? Prompt yourself with those kind of questions. Then again, the power of purpose. I just picked out the most important ones here. So purpose provides emotional drive. It transforms a should into a must. And you can use it here in a beautiful way. So it's not the hard must, it's the beautiful must. Going to the gym today, it's not a should, it's a must because I have a purpose for it. Questions you can ask yourself, okay, what will this give me? How will this make me feel? What's my real purpose here? And yes, you need a result, you need a purpose, you need both. So with all of this, I really wanted to highlight now the most important ones. Let's look again at the category framework for each category of your life. So you need an ultimate vision, you need an ultimate purpose, you have your different roles. And the beautiful thing is then whenever you are in that role, you automatically have your hat on. And whether you are the powerful gladiator in the gym, the healthy food maximizer, the loving partner, the loving grandson, you really fulfill that role. Because if this is your identity in that moment, then all the habits and principles and values and beliefs, they would fall into place if you truly adopt this identity. And again, the 3 to thrive are to make it simple. I could say it's so complex to be healthy. It's so complex. Is it really so complex? I just got to eat healthy. I got to do some workout and exercise, and I got to meditate sometimes. And my body is going to be in shape. So this is about making it simple. And I have I have my resources here as well, including a mentor. And sometimes I don't emphasize this enough, I think, to have the mentor. And when I think about it, I could even have, for my physical body, I could even have a mentor. I have a lot of friends who are very, very expert in this, but I don't speak about it with them. So think about it. What are your resources? What are maybe some untapped resources? And think of your outcomes there as well. And you have that for the different categories of your life. And reconnecting with this regularly every weekend in your weekly reflection is very powerful. In nowadays, I mean, you could even upload it into an AI and ask AI about it. But creating this, having this, it creates this kind of focus. So this is about the outcome-based system. If you want to go deeper into it, I can recommend you to re-watch the session. And very finally, we now do a small repetition of the daily and weekly planning. So best practices for weekly planning. And if you haven't done this consistently in the last weeks, here's another reminder. So taking 1 to 2 hours weekly, ideally on a Sunday. Step 1 is reflection and celebration. So also writing down all your goals. If you do it in a digital format, at some point you can feed them into something, and then you can always revisit your wins, the beautiful moments. But also reflect, what do you want to focus on in the next days? To do that, you connect with your categories and roles and create a plan for the next week. And do you have to do all the to-dos from the last week that are undone? Do you have to put them into the next week? You don't have to do that, right? Only focus on what really matters. So schedule yourself to win, especially schedule the most important blocks, and everything else will fall into place. So about daily planning, what are the daily planning best practices? What I really recommend is this evening ritual to close the current day. So capturing any kind of insights, ideas, learnings, capturing tomorrow's musts, capturing maybe what you want to start the day with. Because in the evening, I know what I want to do the next day in the morning. But sometimes in the morning, I may not know because the mind is kind of really refreshed. So making the plan beforehand. Actually, for any kind of deep work sessions, it makes sense to plan beforehand what you want to focus on, separating planning from executing. Yeah, and doing the personal editing, it's a way to connect with your unconscious mind, taking a moment for yourself, and also thinking, okay, going through different situations, how could I have this done differently? Thinking about it, reflecting about it, and then taking also a note. But really revisiting, and it doesn't have to take long, revisiting some moments. How could I have acted differently? And this enhances learning by 5x, by 10x. Creating an RPM block for your key outcomes. This is something now we didn't repeat, but it is very simple. If you want to achieve a new outcome, say, I want to lose 5 kilograms, you attach a purpose to it and you attach actions to it. Just the simple principles. Always attach, when you want to do something or when you want an outcome, attach a purpose to it and combine it with the actions. And finally, the other component of daily planning is, of course, the morning routine. Now, this is just an overview. We went much deeper into this in our last session. So setting an intention for the day, what you are grateful for, starting the day with gratitude. What do I value that another person does for me? And revisiting your key outcomes of the day. So this is the recap about the daily routines as well. With all of this, I really want to thank you for spending the time focusing on your growth. Maybe there is one last thing that each of you wants to share and maybe wants to commit to, and then I will let you go into this beautiful Tuesday evening. So whoever wants to go first, Diana.
I actually need a tip.
Yes.
Because what I do planning, but then I could show you. I have a weekly planner. I have a daily planner. They are very nice, beautiful. You know, the weekly one. So I see that I have a daily one, which is for more my private things. Then I have a notebook for my work. So I have another plan, and then in the end, I have so many different places. I have my notes that I'm just lost, right? That's why I asked good notes. Yeah. So I was thinking, is there a way, is there a tip that you can recommend to keep this clean in one place and still have some like division in this, like work, private, etc., but have one place where I put it, not having it all over the place?
Yes, so I have actually two places.
Mm-hmm.
I have my journal, which is on my iPad, which I use with GoodNotes. I once invested 1,800 euro into this iPad. There are cheaper
Mm-hmm.
ways to do that as well, but I use it for all my notes. Every time I go to a seminar, every time journaling in the morning, in the evening, I use this iPad for that. It's very powerful. Sometimes I'm a very enthusiastic person. When I have an idea, sometimes I like to draw something, or I like to pull somebody like a whiteboard and draw something, express myself. So I do it all there. But also oftentimes I get some idea, I hear something like the link to a podcast, the link to a book, to an expert, or somebody I want to connect with. Okay, this could become a mentor. And I have my daily notes. Every day, really every day, I create another headline in Google Notes. No, in Google Docs. Google Docs is perfect for that because you have the different sub-tab functions. You can jump from headline to headline. And I just write there all the things that I capture, all the digital notes. So I can revisit those at the end of the week.
Oh, thank you.
These days I even use more than a to-do list. Um, in the last days, I was actually so much connecting with my outcomes in the last weeks that I didn't really use a task list, which is interesting to me, which is really interesting to me because when I heard that for the first time, this was kind of abstract. Isn't this like fluffy? Uh, People saying you really got to connect with the outcomes. Don't focus so much on the actions. But it works. But of course, I manage my actions. But these days, I actually don't use a system like Asana.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
All right. So, yeah, then over to you, Florian, Agustina.
I will kick it off. For me, the book recommendation of Robert Cialdini gave me a bit of a spark because I kind of had phases where the content I was consuming was more these like everlasting wisdoms of books, which that's the thing. An author and an editor usually take a lot of time to distill down ideas into a very information dense format versus more daily changing contemporary ideas that you would hear within podcasts, which are more like conversations. And I do feel there's a lot of value, sure, in both in the right ratio, but I've come away a little bit too much from the book side of things. And I actually do want to get or shift this over more to books now again. As you mentioned, the Robert Cialdini one. And years ago, I had the audiobook on. I might even use that to reignite the spark again.
Yeah, I really recommend that. So this is a great one. One thought that comes to my mind is getting into this mode of creation. It's so powerful. And we have now the tools to create as well as never before, whether it's creating content, a blog article, some kind of research, we can use the help of AI, whether it's building something. Yeah. And if you capture those thoughts that you hear in a book, if you create a kind of post or something you want to share from it, you even have another purpose attached to it. Super. So over to you, Agustina.
Okay. It's been very insightful and very helpful, all the recommendations. And in my case, I think I need to focus more on the weekly mm, reflection. Like I used to organize everything and to know what I want to do next week, but then I don't do a reflection about this, or I don't sit down and say, okay, this was this way and should be the other way, or whatever. So I will start doing this more frequently every week.
Super.
Mm.
Got your commitment on that. So Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. And this is always
In
inspiring.
public.
It's always inspiring. When you
Mm.
commit, others commit as well.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah,
Mm.
I can then only wish you a beautiful rest of the evening. Thank you for creating this space of growth. I wish you a lot of success in the things that you are doing and doing it with joy, with pleasure, with purpose. And I see you in the next session.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Great evening. Bye bye.